Here we go. Homework quiz on Friday, which will include sections 6 and 8, or 7 and 8, sorry. So make sure you watch the video of the last sections. Even though we went over section 6 today, you need to make sure you know section 7 as well. Section 8 is relatively short, and I think I told you guys at the end of class 7 is really about Pliny having talked to these Christians who are now saying they aren't Christian, right? They've gone through all this. He already killed the ones that were, confirmed. Now the ones that are like, no, 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 I was Christian, but now I'm not. I gave it up 320 something ever, whatever years ago. Um, he's like, well, now I need to figure out because these guys are telling me that they didn't do anything bad. All they did was they got up. Um, on a certain day before light, they came together. They sang songs to Christ as though a god. Now, keep in mind, Pliny, of course, doesn't believe in Christianity. Doesn't believe in Christ. Said to him, at this point, Christianity is the pagan religion, and completely wackadoodle to him. He just doesn't understand it. He says, and they gave a series of oaths, basically to do no wrong. Okay, and so he's like, well, if this is true. If this is really true, how do we handle this? Okay, because it really, he's like, maybe they aren't that bad. Maybe. And so we're going to look at that further in section 8. How he goes about this is, well, anyway, we wouldn't do it again today, that's for sure. But let's start with the verbs. Credidi. We've talked about this first person perfect a couple of times, because of course, you've got the, ESD at Emos Aaron, and Pliny is writing this letter. So you have the credi. We have the DK bond tour. Okay, this is another passive. We have the esset, that's subjunctive esset, and we have the infinitive quare. And then we have the inweni here. Okay, those verbs are the ones that you see. It's not a huge section, as you can sort of see. Notice again, we have the infinitive, which I think we went over last time. Make sure you're able to tell an infinitive. The subjunctive of sum here, well, the imperfect subjunctive of sum esset. Which means, of course, that we're going to be an indirect statement of some kind. When we see the subjunctives, remember in Latin 3, and even a little bit last year, we talked about the use of those subjunctives is typically in some type of clause. Not always. But here, of course, what we've been seeing is just a ton of indirect questions, right? So you've got your question word here. We have an indirect or a subjunctive here, which means somewhere in here there's a ding ding verb. And there's actually two right here, and we're going to figure out which one is heading up that in a little bit. All right. I'm super excited about these pens, by the way. They're glitter gel pens that apparently smell like different types of candy. We'll see. All right, after we do that, I think there are a couple of direct objects that we can see. Look at this quam, this AM, this superstitionium, pravam, and emodicium. All right, those AMs are pretty straightforward. And when you have that EM sort of slid in there, like, all right, it's accusative too. Look at this per tormentia. Per is a preposition. Prepositions take either the accusative or the ablative. And we see this here as a tormentia. And you're like, okay, well, I guess in theory it could be um, a long A, or it could be a neuter uh, plural. Now, how do you figure that out? Okay, because there are no long marks in this. How can you figure that out? Well, if you go back and you look at your Latin 1, and you're like, hey, when did I see per in Latin 1? Well, you might remember per agris, right? Through the fields. Do you guys remember that? Per agris? Wow. What case is agris? It's got a long IS. It's ablative, all right? Which means in this case, the per tormentia is indeed in the ablative. All right, that's when those little prepositional phrases can really be kind of helpful, right? All right, per. Of course, if you remembered Sid space, that would also do it. Which would also take us to the ex duabus and chilus, okay? Uh, this duibus is probably supposed to be duibus. There's probably supposed to be an I in there. And they just, got rid of it because that's what the Romans do. And that also is going to be in the ablative. Okay, so we have those done. Are there any other potential ablatives in here? Well, there's one right here, this quo. All right, this is what we call a connecting relative. It's going to be in the ablative. They're frequently in the ablative or in the dative. You will sometimes see cui at the beginning here too. And the cui just means to which or to whom. It indicates a reply to something. But because Pliny's not talking with anyone, he's like, on account of this, like on account of this thing, in which case we're talking about the setup in section 7. It's like, well, on account of these claims that the Christians really didn't do anything, all right, I'm going to do these things. And that's what that does. That connects this part to this part. It bridges a gap, so to speak. Necessarium is going to be, look at that that's going to be accusative. All right. Um, this actually takes us through a lot of this. The quae ministri here, you guys may, this is actually nominative. How do I know? Look at that AE, okay? We went from a first person singular here to a third person plural here. And the one thing that could sort of work as a subject is this quae ministri, which is going to work out because we have this duibus ancillus. And you guys might remember what an ancillus is, again, from Latin 1, that is a slave woman. It's an enslaved woman. And what Pliny is going to do is he's going to take these women who must have been slaves working for the Christian church and for whatever reason. And he's going to question them because they, of course, would have had access to all of this other stuff, all this information, right? Um, and because they were enslaved, he was allowed to torture them. In fact, in certain aspects of Roman law, you had to torture a slave in order for their testimony to count. So he's going to torture these two women to see what they have to say about the Christians. Okay, this very is interesting. It's a partitive genitive. The part genitive. What it means is like there's a whole pot of something. This is literally what there was of truth. Okay, so you'd say you'd have something of wine. They have the idea, the Romans were had like this idea that you have a whole pot of this one item and you're going to take something from it. In this case, something of truth. Okay, so quid here is going to be in the nominative as well. Um, this nihil is actually, remember, nihil's indeclinable. You can't decline it, which is kind of interesting. So it could be like subject or accusative. It's kind of a pain in the button. But in this case, because again, the first person singular I here is going to be, ego. Nihil can't, that doesn't work together. So you know what you have there. All right. So we have that next section 8. We're going to see what you guys listen to. It'll be my next canary in the coal mine test. Okay. See if you guys remember the partitive genitive, the fact that pair goes with the ablative, the fact that there's a connecting relative. There's going to be indirect statement. There's already an indirect question. There's a whole lot of things going on here that I covered in fairly short time. So we're going to see what you guys remember. All right. See you guys on Friday.